Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Seth Ferranti. So, when you were in prison, I've been to prison myself quite a few times. When you were there, did you ever see any other white dudes come in and not fight back? Because I've seen that before, and
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
you know,
So when I came in the feds in '93, I went to FCI Manchester, a medium security prison in Kentucky, and it was like a brand new prison. I opened a lot of prisons, and because I was in the '90s, so they were open a ton of prisons. So, and I wasn't like until I started writing, I wasn't really like a security threat, because I wasn't in a gang. I would get in fights, but I wasn't making like big moves, where like the SIS, that's like the FBI in prison knew who I was. So they, I was like always I wasn't a security threat, so they would send me to like open these new prisons. So at Manchester, man, it was 75% black when I went in there. So, white people were the minority. And then usually there was more Spanish people than white people. So white people were for the minority. Yeah. So I saw dudes, man. I saw dudes, they would get, I mean, it starts out like, give me a pack of cigarettes or ice cream. And then, then they're buying somebody, like a whole bag of commissary, and then, they can get turned out. So I saw a lot of that. And the way that the white dudes in there, like the solid whites or the cons do, like, they call it like a heart check. So they see somebody like, are they going to let the blacks or the Mexicans or the Spanish dudes, are they going to let, is this white dude that came in, first they see if his paperwork's good or not. If his paperwork's not, then they're just going to check him in. They're going to run him off the compound, if he's a snitch or pet or whatever. So, woman abuser, any shit like that, they're going to run him off the yard. But, if the dude is good, it's like a heart check. They're going to see, because they know the blacks or the Spanish, they're going to go to white people, because white people are the minority in most prisons, especially at that time. So the white people are going to watch, and they're going to see if the dude fights. If the dude fights, they're going to get his back. But if he doesn't fight, throw him to the wolves. They don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? It's survival of the fittest. Only the strong survive. So, the white dudes, the whites are already a minority in a lot of situations in there. So they're not going to carry some weak dude with them that won't even fight. When you're white.
Have you ever seen it where a guy not fighting back and they still protect him?
I've seen that sometimes. It just depends. It depends on who's going at him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, if they think the dudes going at them are some chumps, like, whatever, yeah, or they don't like them, it's a lot too, like what agenda the person has. Like, do they like this person? Do they got beef? Do they got a situation? You know what I'm saying? It's all, it's a lot of things, because people in there, I don't know, they talk about like, death before dishonor and all this stuff, but I mean, it's cutthroat, man. It's just like, it's a saying, like, people see the mafia, they see the Godfather, they think it's all this like honor stuff. Man, it's cutthroat, man. It's vicious. I'm not saying that there's dudes like that from all walks of life. There's dudes that carry like that, that carry themselves with respect and honor and dignity, and are fair. But that's like the small percentage of people. The majority of people, in crime or in prison, they're cutthroat, man. They're vicious. They're out for them. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck if you're white, Italian, black, whatever. It's cutthroat, man. It's a cutthroat business. It's a cutthroat world. So dudes don't give a fuck. It's whatever agenda they have. If you fit their agenda, if it fits their agenda to save them because they don't like the people that are fucking getting you, then they're going to save you. But if it doesn't fit their agenda, whatever.
Have you seen any of these situations where they smash someone off the yard? And if you have, can you explain one to me?
Yeah. So I was in Manchester. Manchester, I used to stay in the law library because I got into college courses, but I also I wasn't a jailhouse lawyer per se, but I used to file like the administrative remedies. I got really good at that, so people start paying me for that. And I played sports. I was real athletic, so I fuck with the blacks, I fuck with the Spanish, and I fuck with the whites. Because I was a real good athlete. So I remember, I was always like either going to the law library or going to the yard. But when I was going to the yard, I was going to the yard to play sports or work out. I didn't really like go to the yard, like have like what they call church or whole court, or, a lot of dudes, they're just out there talking about people. That's what they do, or telling war stories and shit. But one time I was walking out, and this was in the feds, Manchester, they still had the 10-minute moves. So they would have both ways, eventually in the feds, they started having one-way moves, like one-way 5-minute moves. And so I saw this old white dude, and he's walking back, and he's not even walking. He's like walking on the grass, and like dude is like, he looks like he had the shit beat out. Like he's just like basically like drenched in blood, and he was like an old head. I think he was like from Tennessee or something, and like, dude, I guess he was walking to a lieutenant's office or something, but like everybody just walked by like, whoa. But, that was the first time where I saw somebody like real bloody. I don't know if he stabbed or just beat up, but I mean, like, dude was literally drenched in blood. Like he could barely walk, but in prison, you see stuff like that, you just keep it moving, because you don't want to look, then somebody's going to see your snitch or this or that, so, but I did find out later what happened was he owed a big gambling debt, from playing cards, and they took him in the bathroom out in rec, and they beat the fuck out of him, and told him to go check in.
Yeah, they don't care if you're elderly. So people out there that are watching this, you better, if you're living on the wrong side of the law, they don't give a shit. If you're older, they'll make you get on the top bunk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they don't care. It's all about stature, man. It's all about it's dog eat dog. I noticed it was really funny. So, I did 21 straight in the Fed. So I did 12 years in the medium highs, and my level dropped, and I did 9 years in the low. And after I done, almost like 10 years, right? It was like, and I was never a shot caller or anything like that. I knew those dudes, I knew them, dudes knew who I was and stuff like that. But I noticed after I'd been like 10 years, it's like years in prison is like stripes on your arm, like in the military or something. So it's like, I noticed it was weird because after I'd been in like 8, 9, 10 years, like dudes started in the unit, like started deferring to me, like what should be on the white boy TV, or, who should live where. Yeah. And, it was like weird. It would like surprise me. And then it was like, when I got down to the lows, and I got like decade in going on 2 decades, like those dudes, they like want me to run everything in the unit, even like, the shot callers for the, which I always thought it was weird. Like you got shot callers in a low. I could see in the highs and maybe in the mediums a little, because you don't want the racial violence. So that's what the shot callers are there for, to kind of, stop the racial violence, because if there's a riot or something like that, it stops all business. And, dudes in prison, what I'm saying, there's all the racial shit, but at the end of the day, they're about money. They're about green. People trying to get their visits. They're trying to get dope in, weed, whatever they do. They're trying to get their hustle on so they can make money, send it out to the street, or just make it for themselves. But, I just noticed, man, that even like the shot caller, they'd be like, "Oh, you're the rep for this unit." I'd be like, "Why am I the rep? I don't want to be the rep." They'd be like, "Oh, because you got fucking 15 years in." And then
the resident shot caller, basically the person with the longest time there.
So like I got the stripes or something because I got the years in. And it was funny because like sometimes like new dudes would come in, and I would basically like read them the riot act. Like when the new white boys came in off the bus, I'd be like, "They do this," and some dudes like they'd be like, I don't know, they'd be fucking killed people or whatever. I don't know, gangbangers, big dudes. And like they would just like listen to me, like because everybody else listened to me. So sometimes I was like, I would also, I would be surprised, because in there it's like you put on a mask, like you can't really be yourself. You got to put in a mask. It's like, okay, this is how we act, this is how you talk. These are the rules we abide by. And you put this mask on, and
you can't show your emotions in there. 100%.
Yeah, you can only anger. You can show us only emotion you can show us like anger. Yeah. So I got so good at being a convict that I was so good at it that people would just like listen to me like I was the authority or something. So I always thought that was weird sometimes. Like sometimes I would even tell dudes shit, and like one of my buddies or something, I'd be like, "Wait, I'm gonna go say this shit to somebody. Watch what they do." Right? And I go say, and I would like, it was almost like a joke to me. I'd be like, "Yo, man, whatever." And it might be some shit like, "Oh, you did some shit. That's a black people's microwave. You need to go clean that fucking shit out right now. You fucked up their microwave. It's going to be a fucking problem." And they'll go scrub that fucking microwave, And like I say, I played sports. So I was like the white boy running full court with all the black dudes. I was like the white boy playing soccer with all the Jamaicans, Colombians, and Mexicans. So I had these relationships from sports. So, dudes would always come to me too, and I was always, they'd be like, hey man, like this dude's did this, like some new dudes come in and they're like watching the wrong TV or they're touching the wrong TV, instead of getting their head cracked, especially at the lows, they would just come talk to someone with me and I have to go, yo, check this out, bro. This is the way it works. This is our TV. You just got here, so you don't even touch our TV. We got schedules. People watch shit, but you can sit over here with us. But you definitely don't touch their TV. But, really, you don't even touch our TV until, if you want to watch something, ask me and we'll see if we can get on the schedule.
So have you ever had anyone with your same race have a problem with you interacting with other races?
Yeah, no, when I started writing, so I started writing like the end of the 90s. I started writing for publication. I was taking college classes. I took college classes through the Pell Grants for 2 years in Manchester, where Eastern Kentucky came right on the compound. I did that for 2 semesters, but then they abolished the Pell Grants. So then I got correspondence courses. My parents paid for it. So, I basically took all journalism, creative writing. That's how I became a writer. I did classes and correspondence, and I ended up getting a master's degree. So while I was learning to write, I started writing, and I was writing like about a lot of the Black African-American gangsters, because when I got in, like I said before, I saw all the mafia dudes and I read all the books about them. And then there was a lot of Colombian dudes, and there was like all the books about them, the cartel dudes. And then, like the mid 90s is when like gangster rap was like really, jumping off, and they started, name dropping all these dudes' names in verse. They were becoming like part of these street legends, were becoming the lyrical lore of hip hop. And I'd be like, and I could go in the black TV room because I played ball with these dudes. So I like, I could go in there and I could hang out because they knew me. They call me homie and shit like that. And I like rap music anyhow. I grew up in the 80s. So, I was like one of the first, people that like rap. I like, I came of age. I was a teenager. So, I like metal and punk and all that stuff too. But, I was always a hip hop kid. And like they would talk about these dudes and they start telling the stories like in the TV room, oh, like so-and-so, from New York or whatever. And I'd be like, damn. And I'd think like, man, I want to get a book about this dude. I want to, and and then they'd be like, oh yeah, that dude's over on B Block. And I'd be like, what? Like this dude
person that you guys are talking about is in
that's being name dropped in the hip hop songs. You know what I'm saying? Like back then it was still like MTV raps, and then later,
who was the person that was name dropped? Was it Big Meech?
No, it was Supreme Team. So Kenneth Supreme McGriff. Yeah. So and they're like, oh, he's right over there. And I'm like, so that's really where I got the whole idea, to start writing books. Cause I was like, I started writing, because I was like, well, I couldn't find any books. There was maybe a couple magazine articles and some newspaper articles about this dude, but there was like no books. So that's what, I went to a couple of the dudes I was with, like Supreme and other dudes. And that's how I started writing. So I started writing first for Don Demon Feds magazine. And eventually I started doing books with Gorilla Convict. But as I was building this, as it was going on, I was still in the mediums. And like some of the white gang leaders, like the Aryan dudes, they would come to me, and they try to say like, like I'm an N-word lover, or I'm this, or I'm that, and they'd be like, why are you writing about these dudes? You're like glorifying them, blah, blah, blah. After I had some articles and books out, because I would get the magazines that I wrote articles in, sent right in, and they were like real popular in prison.
Yeah, but the prison started to get pissed at you too, right?
Yeah, no, they did too. So I'll go into that after. So these white gang leaders like come to me and they're like, why are you writing about these dudes? Blah, blah, blah. And I told them straight up, I said, well, check this out, man. I go, when you guys bring in like heroin or weed or whatever, I go, you guys sell it to whoever. You sell it to black people, right? I go, you sell it to Spanish people, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and if they got heroin or weed or whatever, or hooch, I go, you buy it from them, or you sit at the gambling tables with them, you gamble with them, right? And they're like, well, that's money, man. And I'm like, well, I make money. This is my hustle, bro. I said, I make money writing about this stuff. So I said, money's green, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then after that, they kind of backed off. They were like, well, they couldn't say nothing because the way I broke it down to them, like, you're doing the same thing. So, you know, and a lot of the shot callers or the gang leaders anyhow, you know, for the whites, they're not about all that racial stuff. They're about the money. It's just a way to control. All the racial stuff is to control all the crash test dummies under you.